Is everybody ready? Okay.
Overnight.
Yes.
Okay, we will now enter into the Estacada Budget Committee meeting. We'll have roll call, please.
Matthew Blevins,
Here.
Brent Dodrell,
Here.
John Dolzall,
Here.
Sean Drinkwine,
Here.
Justin Gates is absent, Rachel Hoyland,
Here.
Mike McElroy,
Here.
Jonathan Metcalf,
Here.
Heidi Prokop. Here. Suzanne Seger is absent, Paul Strobel,
Here.
Jerry Tenbush.
Here.
Okay, we're at that selection of chair. Can I have one on the floor, please?
I'll nominate Paul Strobel.
Second.
All right. Strobel's on the floor, first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, take it away, my friend.
Thank you. Back. All right, we'll start off with the approval of the May 14 Budget Committee minutes.
Here, make sure he has this.
I move to approve the May 14th Budget Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the Budget Committee minutes are passed. And now the public hearing, do I read this?
Yes.
Here. I will now open the public hearing to discuss possible uses of state revenue sharing funds for the city of Estacada. I will ask Budget Officer Wagner to explain the funding. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak regarding these funds?
Okay.
Are
You can
there-
stop there.
I'm going to defer to Finance Director Main to.
Yeah, so
Explain.
these are the state revenue shared funds that we receive from the state liquor, cigarette, and marijuana taxes and state highway gas tax. In order to receive these funds, the Budget Committee and the council have to hold a public hearing and open it to public comment. And then the city council will approve the resolution at their June meeting. And this will bring in revenue of about $175,000.
All right, any questions or comments from the committee?
We have no public comment either.
Okay. And then that is it then. I will now close the public hearing. Thank you. All right, now we move on to the presentation of the budget message. Budget Officer Wagner.
Okay, thank you. I will just say right up front, I have 27 slides in case you're counting. So I will not spend much time on each slide. But first, we're just going to admire the cover page for just a few seconds before we move on. That was a great day. All right. Okay, so we have some requirements that are established by ORS that pertain to a city budget. Chapter 294, as you can read there, they establish standard procedures for preparation, presentation, administration, and review of the budget. And I just want to remind the Budget Committee that changes to the budget can be made at any step in the process if it's determined to be in the best interest of the city of Estacada. Staff has worked very hard to look back, look ahead, look at council goals and compile this proposed budget. But this is not chiseled in stone. So we're interested in hearing your recommendations going forward. Okay, just a few highlights for the year in each department. And I'm not going to read each section, but just highlighting Community Development Department. They're doing really great work. We have a fantastic permit tech, a community development coordinator that also does a lot of communication to the city for us. And our senior planner is overseen by our assistant city manager. And we are really maximizing the work of contractors in this department. And they're just getting a lot of things done, moving some things ahead. We are doing the GIS program in-house instead of with a contract. But Alan was able to get a mentorship program that he utilizes to help us get that going. So it is going well. And then in the front office administration department, it's been great having that extra utility billing clerk that we added that FTE for last year. That has helped us to up our game with our human resource department, be able to serve our employees better, and also shifted the workload from the city recorder finance director as far as the HR goes. And that was a recommendation by our auditor, actually. because we just were, everybody was multitasking so much up there with different responsibilities. And his recommendation was that we needed to pull some tasks from our finance director. So it's been very helpful. Some of their priorities this year are working on the unaccounted for water tracking. We want to make sure we're not losing water through leaks, which that's public works, but we also want to make sure we're accounting for it right through our system, through the way we read meters. And I'll be starting to report back to the council on the work we've been doing. The work we've been doing hasn't provided a lot of answers yet, so I haven't brought that forward. But if I don't get answers soon, I will have to present my questions, I guess. But we have been working on that. And that's one of the things that they'll be working on, as well as professional development in that department, and working on policies for HR and finance are some of the priorities for the coming year. In the library, they do so much up there. Their programming is phenomenal. Of course, summer reading is coming up. They're open 7 days a week and fully staffed. They are running right on the edge of their budget as far as being able to carry over enough funds each year, because they don't receive their funding until January. So technically, and we were just looking back at this today, back when the 10% ending fund balance or contingency was established, City Manager Elliott at the time had noted that the library really needs to carry over more than that, because that they're borrowing money basically from the city to keep things running until they get taxes from the county in January, February. But it hasn't been a problem. We've managed with that. And they've been also increasing their beginning fund balance and managing that well. This year, they're slightly under 10% in the contingency. So we will keep an eye on that to make sure that they're sustainable with the funding they have. But they're doing great work up there. A highlight of the community and the full district that surrounds the city that they serve. Okay, and then Public Works and Plants. They're continuing with plans for the wastewater plant. We'll be coming to the council at their June 9th meeting to talk about that, and water treatment plant upgrades. There's some almost done. We're going to need to do a major plant upgrade soon. The new high-level reservoir that I feel like I've been talking about for 5 years is it's under contract, should be done by the end of the calendar year. But it's moving forward. We are adding 1 FTE in the Public Works Department for Parks Maintenance Manager, and that will help Public Works Director to pull some duties off of him, because he has also been spread pretty thin with all that he oversees. So that is an exciting thing to add. Some of the project highlights are doing infill sidewalk on 4th Street Hill and paving the trail at Wade Creek Park 3 to improve ADA accessibility around the gravel part of the trail. And then starting on engineering for a traffic circle at River Mill Road and Eagle Creek Road intersection. Just last week, the city was nominated and kind of, I guess it's approved. We have to go through the application process for the CDBG grant, but I just reported to the council that we'll be able to apply, and it's a pretty sure thing that we'll get close to $800,000 to put towards that traffic circle. So we don't have to go to a 3-way stop and then like a signal and then finally to a traffic circle. We'll be able to do it right off the bat and have it done in the next couple of years with our transportation SDCs and with the assistance of this grant. So that's great news. Keep traffic flowing there. And I know it's a difficult corner to see on sometimes, so that's great. Okay, let's talk about utility rate increases briefly. The water is increasing 3.25%, which there's different tiers. And so I'll just say the base rate for a 3/4 inch meter, which is the most standard one, that equates to about 70 cents increase on that base rate. The storm sewer rate increase is 6 cents per month, and the sewer rate increase is $10 per month per EDU. And I just put in that, we're using the rate study, which I have the slide on the next page. You can see what the recommendations were, but we're following those recommendations. We'll probably need to revisit a rate study in the next couple of years to make sure we're still on track. But you can see that in that line graph over the past 10 years where we've been with our sewer rates. They'd been pretty flat and pretty low for a long time, which has been great for the community, I think. And then we're ramping up here. And then on the next slide, you can see how next year we'll also need another $10 increase, and then we'll start tapering, and we'll see where we are operationally and making our debt payments on the sewer plant. We did just also ask for another $10 million from the state for to help fund the plant, and we should know by the end of June if we get any or all of that or none of that. But we are still seeking funding assistance. So, okay, by the numbers, we've got the proposed budget this year is just over $61 million, which is a 23% increase from last year. The bottom line there is probably one of the biggest changes because we added, previously it was $22 million. We estimated for spending on the wastewater plant. We didn't end up breaking ground last year. So that was not spent, but this year we're budgeting $32 million because we are planning to break ground in late summer, early fall for that project. And it should be done by, they say 27 months. So it would be like the end of 27. Early 28, we'd have up and running. We also had a slight increase in projects. Personal services is increasing by 11.8% because we are adding 2 FTE, and the COLA for this year is 2.5%. There's some more details in my full budget message if you wanted to dig into that, but personal services is 6.9% of our total budget. But if you take that, I feel like the wastewater plant adds a lot, it kind of inflates that cost. So if you take that out and look at the regular rest of our budget, personal services is 14.6% of that. Projects, just a quick summary on where this year and next year. And then just to highlight some major projects for water and wastewater, beginning construction of the wastewater facility. That shows you there some of the grants we've gotten already. And then our loan will be at 1% interest. When we have our engineering loan right now, and we'll be rolling that to the construction loan. With the engineering loan, we have $500,000 forgivable, but once it rolls into construction, we'll have the $2 million forgivable. So that will also add to the part we don't have to pay back. Construction of second high-level reservoir, that is moving forward. Our Eagle Creek Pump Station, which is part of the wastewater system, is under construction now. It got delayed because of there's been some excess water out there. This past, not this month or last month, but it was holding. It's been there from when we had rains earlier. So they should be getting that done. I just saw an email coming from Kurt. I think it'll take another couple months to wrap it up. And then the Lakeshore Sewer Line I&I project, or inflow and infiltration, which is where groundwater gets into our sewer lines and then goes to the sewer plant and has to be treated, which is not what the sewer plant needs to do. Parks projects will be paving trails at Wade Creek Park 3. We also applied for a grant for the Lakeshore Water Access Project Phase 1, which is the upland trails and that first lookout, kind of getting it laid out there. Part 2 would be the actual floating dock down below and the gangway. So we've applied for a grant for that. Hopefully we will get that, but we are also saving our parks SDCs, and those are accumulating. So we will be able to fund this project, at least if not this year, getting started, at least then the next year. We are adding, this doesn't really fit here because it's not a project, but I'm excited about our parks manager coming on. And then updating the parks master plan that we were talking about earlier. That'll start in the fall or winter. And we've really made a lot of headway through the 2018 parks plan. And so rather than just picking projects out of the air, we're going to update that plan and get some community involvement and make sure that the direction we're heading is following council direction and community direction. Okay, some public works projects, the Lakeshore, the entire length of Lakeshore, doing an I&I project that should be starting in June. And it might start by the end of May, but at least by June, and it'll continue on through the summer. We'll be doing sidewalks, ADA ramps, a few ADA ramps, and the Broadway sidewalk repair. If you've noticed over by the food bank, there's been an issue with the sidewalk there that we need to fix. So that's on the list to be repaired. Do some traffic engineering studies, especially safety around schools, and then finish the remodel on the Public Works office space, which is out to bid now. Okay, so I'm going to go more quickly through the rest of this. I'm not doing too bad on time, I guess. But this is just to say that in these funds, they must balance. That means that revenues equal expenditures. It never comes out that way in the actual dollars. Our revenues are always less. I mean, our revenues are always more than our actual expenditures are. And we try to budget cautiously so that we don't overestimate our revenues and underestimate our expenditures. But in the budget, it has to come out to the exact number. So that's how it's written. And then these funds that I'm going to talk about are directed by a previous council many years ago, but maintained by this council to maintain minimum fund balances. So the first is the general fund. It has 6 functional divisions, and it is most of the city business activity is included in there if it's not streets or utilities. So there they are, our 6 functional divisions. Community development looks high this year because we wrote into their $400,000 to receive and pass on through a Oregon Main Street grant. So if we get that, well, those will go to projects that we have to manage and pass it on. So our estimated ending fund balance is $1.6 million, which definitely exceeds the required 10%. 10% would be $630,000. All right, and this is a weird little chart that I made just to kind of show, I feel like our beginning fund balances have been significant. So I wanted to go back a few years and just look at where we had been just a few years ago. This is slightly unrelated, but it was interesting to me to see how the gray line is our property taxes and how they've been growing since 2018. And then the yellow line is our beginning fund balance in the budget every year and what we estimate. So it's not exact, but it's close to what we're carrying over. Because like, as you notice, our contingency is 1.6 million, but we won't spend everything that we budget to spend because there's always a little extra left over. So then when we start with our beginning fund balance, it's even higher. So you can see back in 2018, it was down around where the amount of taxes we were getting. I don't know if that's related or not, but that's just how it was. And then we had a big jump in 2021. I'm not sure if that was because of the COVID situation, ARPA dollars, or I don't know what caused that jump right there, but now we've kind of been running, the last few years up there. And so that's probably a discussion for council later on. We are expanding FTE. Last year we added just the one we added last year. We're adding 2 this year. We wanted to add 3, but we were concerned that we want to make sure it's sustainable. So we just did the 2 this year to see how personal services are going to be going. And then, but projects, things like that, that's a one-time hit. If it's something that the city needs to do, then we need to do it. And we have funds. So I don't know, just wanted to throw that out there for some food for thought right now.
So you're not asking for a question now or just saying for future council meetings?
It could be future council meetings, or if you have questions now, I mean, we could do questions now too. I feel like, I don't want to be too conservative. I want to use the money for the funds that we have for the benefit of the city. I also don't want to be cavalier and then get us in a problem down the road. And so I think multiple brains are better than one, and staff obviously has put a lot of thought into this too. So we're confident with the budget we have, but I just want to say, look at where we're going, and then council, we can come up with some other ways, like if we want to, this is a long shot, but to build a new city hall someday or remodel this one. Do we want to start setting aside funds for that? And that's a council discussion, council goals for later. But I also just wanted to highlight that I am cognizant that we're running high, I think, in the general fund carryover. But that's the whole contingency for running a whole city. So it's just, it's an interesting thought. Just want to throw
Very.
it out there.
Can that money be used for procurement of properties?
Mhm.
If we decide to go, if we decide there's,
And we can do a supplemental budget. If an opportunity comes up later in the year, we'd have to pull the whole budget committee back together if it's a large change, but just not to cause confusion. I'm confident about this budget, but I just want to say we're not like some cities out there right now who are really struggling to make things happen. We have opportunity, and we have good funds right now. So we want to do good things with those.
Yeah, and I know me and you have had lots of discussions on making sure that you're properly staffed
Mhm.
because our city is growing at a rate that is incredible and we're seeing healthy growth. But at the same time, you need staff help. I mean,
Mhm.
that's obvious.
Yes.
I've seen it myself. So
Yes.
this is not a question. So your idea of bringing on more full-time employees, at least two,
Mhm.
maybe three,
Mhm.
I think is essential for the health and growth that we're seeing, because we're going into a lot of major things. I mean,
Mhm.
talking about another urban renewal, big.
Yes. Yes.
Major construction all over this town going on at this point. There's lots of things where you're going to need extra help.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure that we're prepared for that going forward.
Mhm.
And I think all our counselors are in the same frame of mind. We want to
Mhm.
make sure that our staff is secure and taking care of this so that we're not holding up progress, right?
Mhm.
That's not a good sign either. So,
Not overwhelming the staff that's
yeah.
here by having too many things. So that's why we are trying to add and in a good orderly fashion.
mhm.
But thank you for that support. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, and then just based off your previous experience, just with that carryover, could we use a portion? And when I say a portion, I just mean this would go back to my previous comment earlier in the wrong meeting, but could we swing 100 grand or 150 grand of that budget towards park expansion? I mean, immediately, I think right behind Wade Creek Park is that green space that is unoccupied and fenced that grows tall and is ridiculous. Like, what would it cost to acquire that and expand the playground? Or what other options do we have to improve existing playground or even push forward? Like, I know you have, not that I want to see another park in Campanile, but I know you had plans for expansion on the other side,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
what could 100 grand or $150,000 or something like that of that? What would that accomplish from your perspective? And is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's a possibility. And we also have park STCs for expanding parks. So that's a good possibility. I would also want to maybe just hold off on that till we get the Parks Master Plan done, updated. But for things like that, yeah, those are things that we could do. Counselor McElroy.
What's the third position, FTE position that you held off on adding?
It was facilities. It was a facilities person. Because we used to just kind of squeeze that in the cracks when, Public Works pitches in, or we need light bulbs replaced, or why do we still say library outside the back door here? They've been gone for 20 years because nobody's recently had time to get a new awning put on there. The library continually needs help with some things and just changing out I don't know, I can't even think of what they do. Pressure washing the sidewalks and washing all the things that we do. In addition to, we have a contract for cleaning all the facilities, and I'd like to have that person do our regular cleaning. But also then be able, when we have an issue, we can call them and say, hey, can you come up here and help us with this?
What would be the budget impact if you offset it with the contract, so they would take over what we're currently paying a contractor to do?
Mhm.
What's the net change
I
of
would
the
have to
impact?
look at that, what that is.
If it went on this year? That's one thing
Yeah.
I'd like to consider.
One more question.
Right, yeah.
I'd like to know, how's our contingencies holding up on all facets of the city? So sewer, water, roads,
Yeah.
everything. Are we healthy?
Good question. We're in good shape. I'm about to get to that. So why don't, after I've kind of got your brains going on that we're in really good shape and we want, you might want to, this is things that you can discuss together as a budget committee, but I'll keep going so you know the rest of the information real quick.
Okay.
Okay, quick police update. We're expanding police once again, adding one more deputy. They're supposed to come hopefully this spring, but they've had they haven't had as many people come through the academy as they thought. So at least by the fall, if we can get somebody this month or next month, we'll add them. If it's later in the summer, we'll probably just wait till September because we'll have Deputy Kyler, who's our SRO, filling in and on patrol in the summer. And that way we would be on schedule with the bump. We wouldn't have somebody coming for just a couple months and then getting bumped out. So, but we will have with this increase 7 day a week, day and night coverage of deputies. So that'll be fantastic. The library fund, this is just a little bit of information about them. They are nearly meeting the 10% requirement. So we'll keep an eye on that. But they're doing great work up there. And that is, again, just as a reminder, countywide taxing district. So it's not funds that come from the city. All right, street fund revenues come from the state shared gas tax, county vehicle registration fees, grants, plan review fees, and usually a transfer in from the general fund. It's less, we're transferring in less this year than we did the last couple of years. That's right, yeah. But I also maybe want to throw out there an idea that at some point, the city council might want to look at a gas tax, which we had looked at previously. And I know that's a two 3-letter words that people are very sensitive about. But we have a very thriving small town that is supported by all these forms of revenue based on our population. And then we have a very large area, another, I don't know, 10, 12,000 people in the area, plus all the people that are passing through that come and use the streets in this town. And it's on the backs of the people who actually live here. So if we had a gas tax, then that would be an additional form of funding. I haven't modeled it out to know how much that might bring in, but just something to consider. It might make it more equitable for everybody in the area to contribute to our streets versus just the folks who live inside city limits supporting our streets. So just a thought, probably
Just-
unpopular thought, but wanted to call it out
Little
there.
caveat too on that, just so we understand, because I've been down this path before and it's a
Mhm.
hard fight. But in the past, I've always done it because I believe we should keep funds in Estacada as far as the gas tax goes.
Mhm.
Right now, the county will impose a gas tax whether we do or not. Okay, but when we put one in play, the county can't put one in play. So
Oh.
what you're doing is you're paying more gas tax every time on your fuel, but you're paying it to the county. If the city develops a gas tax and puts it into play, and it could be small, it could be insignificant, oh, never mind. Anyway, it could be small. And it would go into your community and the county cannot put one in play if you have one in play.
Oh, interesting.
So just a little caveat for you.
Mhm.
And when I last brought this to the table, I brought it as a seasonal gas tax, which would be your tourist season mainly. So the people that are using our roads are paying that tax.
Mhm.
Okay, and then in the winter months, it would be off. And it was turned down, but if people looked at the bigger picture
Mhm.
and looked at the idea that the county's gonna put one in play if you don't, it'd be something to talk about.
So does that money go to the state and then get redistributed, or does that money stay in Estacada, that gas tax?
It stays in Estacada.
So we don't
We don't
send
have
it
to share
anywhere
it.
and it gets redistributed. So that's just our,
I'm not sure if it goes to if they pay it to the state. We'd have to look in the
Yeah,
details.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
so I would hate to,
but we wouldn't have to share it with other
okay,
other agencies though.
yeah.
That's just kind of a random thought just to think about because we're doing fine. We supplement it with the general fund when needed. We get grants when we can, but it is something that might be for future discussion for council. And I do want to shout out to Public Works because they whittle away every year. They'll do projects. Sometimes they're bigger projects, like when we did the whole Foothills Edge Hill community that hadn't been done since the 70s and the early 2000s or late 1990s, something like that. They did that whole area at one point. Or sometimes it's smaller and but we do something every year so it's not ganging up on us where we've got too far behind. Anyway, just wanted to share that idea. Things the street fund is used for. We're gonna do some speed humps on Pierce and Sweetwater. We got the Fourth Street Hill sidewalks going in, ADA sidewalk repairs, as I mentioned, street maintenance, street signs and markings, and street lighting, which is one of, I said, the city's biggest expenses. It's one of the street fund's biggest expenses is paying for our street lighting, which is important. And so our ending fund balance or contingency is 9.7%. So it's very close. At that point, it's just kind of playing with the dollars. So I just let it sit there. All right, water fund is run as an enterprise fund, which is like a business where it's a fee for service. Total anticipated expenditures, about $1.5 million. And this one does need a larger contingency for any kind of a catastrophic system failure. So, but our ending fund balance or contingency is $376, which is good. We've also are setting into aside for a reserve for a future expenditure. Almost $1.9 million will be saved in that fund this year. And that is because we are right now almost complete with the upgrade that's happening at the plant. That pushes us to be able to make 2 million gallons a day. But we need to do a major upgrade in the next couple years that will it'll allow us, we'll prep it to make 3.5 million gallons a day for when we can potentially get some more water rights. 2.6 is what we can do now, was our water right for right now, but that'll cost, I think it was 12 or $15 million to do that. And so the plan is to get started and utilize funds that we have to either earn interest and start getting a loan if the loan is lower than the interest that we're earning. But be able to get our filters ordered and move forward on that project to get the full water plant upgrade in the next 2 or 3 years. It has to be done in the wintertime because you have to take part of the plant offline. So we have to do it in the low water use season. But that's what we're setting aside some funds for. And then storm sewer fund. This is highly labor intensive, as it notes there. So our expenditures for this fund are just over $500,000, so it seems low in comparison to the others. And we do have a good contingency of $65,000. This is important for all the water runoff that we have. And you'll notice that there's better, I think, improved best practices for that with the all of the retention ponds that we have, but those are all maintenance. Got to keep those in good condition, not overgrown. And so just wanted to share that. Sewer fund. This is divided in 2 sections for treatment, which is at the plant, and then collection, which is the sewer lines out in town. Budgeted expenditures of $1,855,000 and a contingency of $473,000. That's another one where we want to have a little bit larger contingency in case there's a problem. The current wastewater facility will continue to operate until the end of 2027 or early in 2028 when the new one's up and running. And we also have in this line reserved for future expenditure of $2.4 million as we are preparing for that initial the initial loan payment that we're going to have to make, which will be all the accrued interest over the time. So we don't have to make a payment, kind of like a student loan. You don't have to make a payment, but it's accruing interest while you're not making a payment. So we'll have a large, and Steve Donovan had brought that to the council and said, hey, you need to be ready for this because they'll let you roll it into your loan if you want to, but it just pushes out, the amount of interest we're paying and the time we're paying it off. So, all right, reserve funds. These are our projects funded by SDCs. And this year in the budget, we have $440,000 for parks, $3.6 million for water, and $10,000 for streets that we have listed projects to come out of our SDCs. We always budget to spend all of our SDCs, right? But these are ones that are identified currently. All right, I'm almost at the end here. We have a couple of bonded debt funds. One is the GEO bond that uses property tax money. So you'll see that on your property tax statement. That is to pay for the loan for the water treatment plant upgrades. And then the LID bonding fund, we collect payments from property owners out in the industrial campus when the infrastructure was expanded out there we got the loan, but they're paying it back. So they pay us, we pay the loan payment. And that is 6 years from being paid off. All right, so just a quick summary of this budget. It reflects the priorities, policies, and goals of the Estacada City Council and the citizens it represents. I believe that the city revenues are being prudently spent to improve and maintain our systems and facilities, to construct necessary infrastructure, and to maintain adequate reserves for unanticipated expenses. And we're setting aside funds to earn interest and pay for future capital projects, not way out there, but in the next 5 years or less than 5 years, we'll be using those funds. So it's not like we're saving money indefinitely, but they're allocated to be used for certain specific things. So we're funding our priorities with the capital improvement needs in public works and the treatment plants, park infrastructure, committed to providing police services. The Estacada Public Library is doing great work. And then just also want to thank city staff for their continued commitment to serving the community with professionalism and with excellence. All right, so I will turn it back over to Chair Strobel for questions, and so the committee can review the budget and discuss.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So we've heard the budget. We've heard the conversation there. What questions do we have now? What comments? This is our time as a committee.
So I have a question about tourism. In this here, it mentioned that that's a priority for development, so I didn't know how that is funded now.
Right now, we have a contract with Noble Consulting, and they help us kind of our priorities have been the shoulder seasons, as Kurt called them, so I started calling them that. The time, people come out here in the summer anyway, but in the fall and in the spring, they run social media campaigns to draw people out here. They're also helping us get a foot in the door with like the disc golf event that's coming up in a couple of weeks. We're having a table there. Well, they didn't help with this, but we're also having a table up at the Whitewater Festival this coming weekend. If anybody's up there, come and see me. And so that is a $20,000 contract. And then we also are supporting the chamber with their visitor center. They have their brick and mortar place open again. And so that's a great place. We had continued to support chamber anyway with because I think that's a good tourism draw for information for people wanting to come to town. They'll check a chamber website, but now especially it's great that they have their visitor center open. So those are the two strategies right now. And the Economic Development Commission is working on ways tourism is one of the prongs of their approach, but I think they're not highly focused on tourism, but that is one of the things that they'll be thinking about.
Thank you.
And we've
Mhm.
looked at ways of subsidizing chamber, right?
Mhm, yeah.
We've looked at funds that we could get them to help them with that
Mhm.
process.
Can I keep going?
Sure.
It was good to see the city did something about the landscaping driving into town with those trees. It
Oh,
looked really
great.
good. Is there more planned for that in some of those areas where things have died or,
There is more planned for
Okay.
that. Yeah,
and that's all budgeted?
yes, it
All right.
is. It is. More like the bushes need to come out of there's more planned. And then potentially also doing some landscaping at the parking lot up here where it's just grass on the edges. So there are more plans and
Good.
they were budgeted.
Good.
Thanks for asking that, Brent. That was a good way to put it. Good job, but on there.
No, I remember last year I brought it up and I think you said it was in stages. So yeah,
Yes.
it's good to see that's
Yeah.
happening. You know, the mayor commented how good things look downtown and I think they really do. So if we can just make it look
Keep
good,
on going
as soon
with
as you hit that sign, Estacada is a good looking place to be. I think that's good.
Good.
And then back to the large contingency, I talked with you earlier. This was a point of discussion last year at the budget committee that we have a really high contingency in the general fund and sound like the council was going to maybe talk about putting a limit on that. I don't think that
I
happened.
don't think we talked about actually, we didn't really.
So
get to
anyway,
limiting that.
I it looks like if my math is right, it's about like 25% as opposed to 10%.
Because it's at 1.6 and we really only, the 10% would be 630.
So I would recommend in this budget, taking some out of that contingency. I also notice in your city council goals that this I thing is still a problem. It
Mhm.
was a problem when I was on city council years and years ago. So it seems like that would be a good place to take some money and put it to.
Sure.
And again, is those I projects, those are contracted out. That's not city staff, correct?
Right. We need to do some research and identify the areas, and then we could get some help from the engineers, and then Dawn just manages the contractors. Yes. Yeah.
I
Good
think
idea.
that would be a great way to redirect and maybe it's too soon to make a motion, but I think you could take $500,000 out of that contingency and get it towards I if it could be, if all of that could be spent in a budget year. I don't know if you can get enough contractors to make that happen.
That's a good question. Don's on vacation this week, but we did text him anyway. And I talked to Kurt to sit, and he's like, yeah, and it would make DEQ happy. And I don't know that we would get it all spent in this year. We have 300,000 in there right now that mostly will go to the Lakeshore project, which is that's a lot of work. But, yeah, I mean, I would not be opposed to that. I'd be very receptive to that. I think Chris would also in his management of the plants. So
That's all I got.
can happen, yeah.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I got a two-part question as well, two separate things here. Backing up a second, you talked at one point about specifically for the communication purposes about you had a partnership or an internship thing you were working on with
Yes.
was it veterans or college students or something?
It's for folks coming out of the military. And so it's through the Department of Defense. It's called Skill Bridge. And I just have gotten that all finally approved. And so it should be getting posted by Friday. So that'll be open for people to apply for communications. And I didn't really highlight that in my presentation for some reason, but the second person, so one person will be the parks manager and the second person would be communications and public relations.
So would that come from that program?
That would come, yes, that's my plan, as long as all works out. If it doesn't work out, we'll just hire somebody. But we'll give that a shot first. And that would be they're paid from the branch of service that
Yeah.
they're in for the months that they're here until they are discharged from the service, and then we could hire them on going forward.
Okay, so that's a potential, we could potentially save money there
Mhm.
if that program rolls out. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I was just curious because I
And
wasn't
we could do it
sure.
again next year too, if we want.
Right.
Yeah.
And then my other thing was just looking at some of the reserve, if you will. We talk about having funding issues and stuff consistently, and we've brought up grant opportunities, and Elena does incredible work, but she is one person.
Yes, she is.
And I know that you're talking about an FTE and that the city's needs, I don't think necessarily reflect having like somebody specifically designated to grants, but what about a contractor? I mean, I could see our return, I guess, is what I'm saying on that being massive if we could use that to shore up. I mean, if we had somebody that was full-time hunting grants and financial opportunities, have we looked at contracts like that before to establish something, even if it was on a part-time scale or something like that, just somebody that could go and attract opportunities to bring them to us to help us save money.
We have looked into that. Typically a grant writer they'll write into the grant the amount that it would cost to hire them. So they can work it out that way. Part of the issue is not just writing the grants. They can be time consuming, but if you actually get the grant, then you're like, oh my goodness, now look at all this work I get to do because we got this grant. And so actually splitting up the grant writing Elena does a phenomenal job at it. She's probably the best one that does the most, but also I think Evelyn has done some work on the Main Street grant, and we can it can kind of go around the departments, but then adding people to departments to manage this extra work that's going to come when we get these grants. But So I don't know that, I don't know that that would be like my top recommendation for a person to hire, but it's definitely something that we should look into. and
I
bring
mean,
to
just like
front.
as a
Or a contract, right?
contractor, specifically, somebody that would manage it through entirety, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
To tenature of the loan. So they would source it, it would come to you guys for approval. And then they would apply from there. Your staff at that point, the way I would think it would work would give them what they need to fill it in or whatnot, right? And work with them to complete it. But then they would check on the grant and through its tenature, make sure they answer and respond to anything that comes from it. And then from there, that's where, I mean, that would complete their service part of it. But is there a management? I would imagine there's a management company out there somewhere that could do that, that could provide that full sale service. Because I just look at like, your staff is working diligently and I appreciate them and they do work hard and it's incredible. But could we find somebody that is what their focus is on sourcing, finding us revenue? I mean, we have so many different facets between Lakeshore, between trying to acquire property for park space. I mean, infrastructure needs,
Yeah.
the streets, I mean, it goes on and on and on. So I just mean, can we
That
ask for
would
help?
be- Yeah, absolutely. That is, I think that I don't have like a direct path forward on that right now, but I think that's something should keep my eyes open for and see how that could be added in. Yes.
I think a great way to spend some of the extra contingency that we have is to map out the 34.3 miles of water mains that we have and find out where we're losing 35% of our water. We're gonna be getting ready to spend all this money to improve the plant. When we get ramped up to our current water rights at 2.6 million, we're gonna be losing 910,000 gallons a day. If we're putting out 2.6 and we're losing 35%, we're gonna be losing almost 1 million gallons a day. We don't have to go look for more water rights to get up to 3.3 if we capture that 910,000 gallons that we're losing. And if bringing in a contractor that can map out where the water loss and identify the projects that we need to, where the greatest water loss is in those sections of mains, and fix that problem and get it down to an acceptable, get it under 15% at least. I think that would be a great, and it doesn't have to be in lieu of the I&I projects, but maybe working side by side with that to identify those areas. I would really like to see that number get down to a reasonable percentage quickly. So if that's something what would that look like? How would we account for that? Do they have I don't know if maybe when Don gets back, if he could present a number of what they charge per foot or per mile for inspection. I don't know how they do that for inspecting the water mains or water pipes where we're losing the water loss at, but I'd like to see what that would cost to get, if that could get done in a year, and what the cost of that would be if we contracted it out.
And we had budgeted $75,000 for that. That was right.
To
So-
complete it,
To do some research on that and figure out where, but yeah, I mean, we could increase, maybe we double that. To really get to work on that.
is it gonna be
It's-
contracted out?
Part of it would be contracted. We did meet with somebody from the Oregon Association of Water Utilities, and his recommendation was not to contract out too much. We do have equipment. I'm learning more about this too now. So we have equipment that can locate, they listen to it, and it's the same equipment that the contractor does. And his recommendation from talking to cities or water utilities all over his parts of Oregon is that it's best if the people who work on the system do it because they're very familiar with the system, but then who does the work that they're already doing? So we need to have a plan. And Dawn and I are working on this of how to do it, but it wouldn't hurt. There's a satellite program that will come over and they can tell the difference between chlorinated water and not chlorinated water. I can't tell you how they do that. But they'll identify if there are some leaks, and then they call it ground truthing, and they come in and do basically what our guys can do and go check out those spots first. We're also discovering that it may not be actual water leaking. It might be our meters not malfunctioning, but just not reading correctly, as that would be a malfunction. It could also, we're we're hitting it on several different levels. And so I will be bringing a report to the council, but I think that would be fine to, if we want to add some water into that, searching for that unaccounted for water and making the repairs that need to get made, the ones that we locate. That, because I would like to have some answers to that, and I just don't have answers right now. So,
Do
Yeah.
we think doubling it 75,000 up to 150,000 is enough? No, I know we're just talking about
Mhm.
numbers now, but I think you'd said before, once the budget's in place, the council can vary, what, 5%?
Mm.
From the budget?
10% or $5,000, whichever is more. So if we bumped it to 150 and we needed to get to 165, we could do that. It's just with the council action, because that would be 10%, right? Yeah.
I'd like to see it closer to 300 so that they could actually get things done. What are they going to do when they have to replace 400 feet of water main or something? If there is
Well,
identified areas of that,
yeah.
how do they,
Or,
we're
or,
just identifying it. If we're just identifying it this year,
or a
that-
bunch of meters, you know? I mean, those meters aren't cheap either.
They're
so-
not cheap, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of answers for that because I don't know. I know that Don and Kurt had talked about what they could use this year and came up with 75. I think they tried to had they tried to bump it up to 100 or what? Do you remember the discussion on that?
No, I think it was
Okay.
always 75.
Was it always
Mhm.
75?
I think.
So I don't know if putting more money at it in 1 year's time is helpful, but you would think it would be. So, and those are priorities because water saved is water gained. And then the I&I, that's going to help our current plant, and it's also going to help our future plant because there's no point treating rainwater.
as long as the 75,000 that they're proposing is
Mhm.
at the end of the year, we're going to be able to identify the losses, whether
Mhm.
it's malfunctioning meters or leaking pipes,
Mhm.
then I'm good with it. But if it's not enough to do that, I'd like to see that increase to
Mhm.
whatever they need to be able to identify the issue.
Okay.
So I don't know
Much, yeah.
how this works. If we could amend the budget and say we want to take 500,000 out and put it to those two different departments, because we're talking about the sewer system with the I&I and then the
Mhm.
water system, right?
So maybe
Well-
add 400,000 to the I&I and throw another 100,000 at the water loss,
Or something
something like that,
yeah.
however you want to.
And you're asking, can we be vague enough that way? And
Yeah,
say,
yeah, that's, I guess, because I don't know what happens if you put it in that department, then Don says, we can't do all that much. It's like, what?
I'm
what
sure
happens
that
then?
on the I&I, I'm sure he can to get close to that. I mean, it would just be it would be another couple projects or another large project. The water loss, I'm not sure how that plays out yet. But we definitely need to hire some experts to come in. That's the thing.
I would say 500,000 to the I&I because that's critical. I don't want to short that. And I would say putting 100,000 in to that department doesn't have to be, would it have to be dedicated just to the water loss? Or could we dedicate it to water loss and upgrade of
Just look at that
outdated
page.
meters? Like where if we, the oldest meters in the city where they are going to be, that need to be replaced anyways,
Yeah,
maybe we can do some meter replacements
yes.
as well as to bring them closer up to date. And then whatever they can, so they could use it for both items.
Yes.
If we put it in water, I think that
Yeah.
would be good.
We
because-
currently have it in system maintenance.
Yeah,
So any kind of system maintenance, we could use that money for.
Okay.
meters are
Here.
expensive and I think that, sorry.
John's adding in, he's got.
And just information pertinent because of, you talked about with this water loss stuff, having an employee, having us do some of that stuff. And I remember last year at the budget, the expense for a city FTE, it was different. There was a range depending on the department, but it was about 112,000 was what the average was. So that's the cost.
Mhm.
Okay. No, I'm in complete agreement with Brent and Mike here with taking that money and throwing it into that area. This is a very important area that we've got to get it straightened out, especially going forward, looking for more rights on the water. I mean, this is all essential. And with the amount of growth we're seeing. So I think that's what should be our focus going forward, and that's comment more than a question.
Okay,
So
so
then-
that would take our contingency in the general fund from 1.6 down to $1 million, which would be, I don't know what that percentage is, but it would be, I feel like, more reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it shows responsible government.
Mhm.
Okay, so how would that read if you were going to do that?
So do we need, why don't we do a motion just to be really clear that somebody wants to make a motion to move from general fund contingency.
Mhm.
It would be $500,000 going to I-9.
500 or 600?
600 coming out and 500 going to I-9, 100 going to system maintenance and water. And the I is in, let me find that.
Sewer fund.
Yes.
I move to remove 600,000 from the general fund contingency, directing 500,000 to I in the sewer fund and 100,000 to service maintenance,
Water
in
system maintenance.
water system maintenance in the water fund.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. All right, so Sadie will recalculate what
Mhm.
the final.
Yeah.
um,
So that would
motion.
increase our budget, our total budget to 61,735,500.
More time, Sadie, sorry.
61,735,500.
Okay. All right. I
Another
appreciate
question,
you
Paul, when you're ready.
putting your heads together on that and helping us to make that decision.
So this is totally unrelated. You mentioned the Main Street grant.
Mhm.
What's that going to be used for?
So we have two properties who have applied for that. Previously, we got that grant to go for the Mossy Rock building.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is, so, the old video, what is it now called?
Just in video.
Yeah, the old Justin Video building, I can't remember the Jiu-Jitsu studio now. That property owner applied, as well as the property owner who just bought SNS Tax Building. They both applied for funds through the Main Street Oregon grant. And so if they are awarded, then it would come through the city and go on to them for doing historical renovation to their buildings.
And who manages Main Street within the city?
That is managed by the Community Development Department. So our Community Development Coordinator and overseen by the Assistant City Manager.
Good, thank you.
Mhm.
Just a little bit of background. The Downtown Estacada Commission is really, really getting, the current commission was never really knew anything about the Oregon Main Street program. I pushed probably harder than I should to get them to educate themselves on the Oregon Main Street program because they were like we were going to step away from it, and I don't want to see that because it's a lot of funds that are lost. A lot of good comes from the Oregon Main Street program that the city of Estacada can use. So Downtown Estacada Commission has really been making an effort to educate themselves on the Oregon Main Street program, get more involved. They're going to quarterly meetings with the Oregon Main Street program. They're traveling to different cities and going through this stuff. And it's really been good to see, and to see this grant come through, and for us to have as many applicants as we had to choose from, and then, to pick the two that we did or that they did was really, it's really good. So it's just one thing that
Yeah.
the Downtown Estacada Commission is really putting an effort towards, like I said, getting more involved with Oregon Main Street program.
Good, thank you.
Other discussion? Rachel, you still with us? Anything from you?
I'm still with us, but no, nothing from me right now.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Paul, one last comment.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to Melanie and your team for putting together a concisive and direct budget. It was very easy to read and very well done.
Thank you.
I feel confident that you're all on the right track and you're trying to do the best you can for
Mm.
Estacada. So thank you for that. And thanks Sadie and the team. You
I
guys did a great
appreciate
job.
how I appreciate you saying that, and that also how much over the last several years it's gotten easier and easier, I think, for people to be able to look through. And if they come and ask questions on something they might be having trouble tracking with, we can point it out. And it's once you kind of have gone through it a little bit, it makes it I think it's very transparent where funding is going. So I'm thankful for that.
Yes, Jerry.
So I know we talked about it earlier, but can we take another little bit out of the general fund and put it towards that facilities maintenance person that you know, that you've decided not to? Because I mean, that sounds like a pretty important a pretty important position. So I'd like to see if we could, you know, if we could maybe put that in this year's budget also.
Okay, I'm kind of excited about that thought, but I also know that it trickles out to multiple departments. And so I'm wondering if we should consider that and then come back, like once we get the other two hired and we're seeing how things are playing out, we could come back and ask for a change if we needed to make a change to add that. I kind of hate to add a FTE on the fly when we had looked at it, tried to figure it, we had figured it out, and then it wasn't working. And so we'd have to figure out like how to make it sustainable, I think is what we need to do. But
I just don't want it
appreciate
to,
that.
I mean, if it's a necessary position, I don't want to push it off another year.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm.
if we can, you know,
Mhm.
get the
Yeah.
job, get somebody in here to do the job and, you know, not push it out another year.
Mhm.
you know.
Okay,
You're asking for time and maybe approach it with a supplemental budget.
that's what I think I would prefer to do with an FTE.
That's a responsible way to do it. That's
I think so. Yeah, but I will keep that in mind though,
Yeah, thank
that you would be
Jerry.
willing to do that.
And see if that's an opportunity where maybe the first year, if you're not planning on using them for maintenance reasons, the first year, maybe talk to Don and see if that's a position that where if we came back with supplemental change, that he could utilize them in identifying the water leakage areas or replacing meters that are identified as, if he wanted to identify the oldest meters in the city and start, if that's somebody that could be trained to do the replacement on those
Mhm.
meters.
That's to get that too.
So
We did replace, I don't know if we've got through all of our old meters. We have, right? Got
Mhm.
through all of our old meters since in the last 6 years or so?
We've
Replacing-
replaced them all?
Yes.
No, we still have a few, I think, to go, but
I guess a quadrant in the old,
Mhm.
because are they able to be read by do they have to manually read them?
yeah, it's just a small list.
Okay,
Mhm.
small list of manual reads. Most of them have been updated to the
Radio read.
radio read, which we also tested out. We did have the guys go out and read all the meters. I think it was in February or March. They manually read every meter just to make sure that what we're getting on the radio read is accurate to what is actually happening. So I'll bring more back on that, but yeah, to cross train or have like multiple mixed positions that's a idea too.
Yep.
Okay, so bringing it back as a supplemental, later
Yeah.
on.
Later on when
what was the new budget amount?
61,735,500.
I think it was 7.
Did I write it down wrong?
You,
735.5.
yes, you're right.
735,500. Okay. All right.
Looking for a motion?
Well, we got
Citizen.
citizen input. We've got no citizens in with us here now. Anyone online? No one online. All right. So at this point, we're looking for a motion. Do we need anything specific read on that, or is just a motion
amended.
with the amended?
I've got it.
Okay.
I move to approve the 2025-26 budget as amended in the amount of $61,735,500. And then the last line as well to be read.
Can't
How
remember.
about the
what.
ad valorem? Is that the ad
Oh, no.
valorem?
I move to approve the rate.
We'll do
Okay.
that next.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sorry.
Second,
John?
Yeah.
John or Jonathan?
Jonathan.
Okay, John.
John.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, budget passes. Thank
Yay.
you. All right, now this is the point we need the motion for the ad valorem of property taxes.
I move to approve a rate of $2 or $2.6749 per $1,000 of total ad valorem property taxes to be certified for collection.
Do I have a
Second.
Brent, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And that is it, correct? And I want to thank also just Melanie and Sadie for willing to meet with all of us and get us prepped as well too. I think that's just a phenomenal way to get this thing rolling and us on the same page. So thank you. And thank you for everyone being here tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Another
everybody.
successful budget season. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.